Okay, so I decided I wanted to build a dust chute for my table saw that my dust collector could hook up to. So I've already measured the bottom of my table saw, and right now I'm taking measurements and getting ready to cut the top piece to the table saw. I'm not going to go over all the measurements because everybody's table saw is going to be different, so I'll just give a basic overview of what's going on. So after I get that cut, I'm just measuring in to cut the inside of the top piece. It'll make more sense as soon as it gets going. But I'm just going to drill some holes in it, cut out the inside with a jigsaw for the top piece that goes to the table saw. And now you see here I'm just cutting the inside with the table saw as everything that's on the table goes bouncing around everywhere. But I cut out the inside so that there's a hole for the dust to fall through from the table saw. And then I'm just going to trace out the table saw shroud or connector, whatever you want to call it, on another piece of wood, and then I'll cut that out and do the same thing that I did with the top. Right there I'm just measuring how large the lip is on the connector piece, and I'm making it the same measurement on my board. So I'll cut out the centerpiece just like I did with the top. Okay, here I'm cutting out a couple of the sides that will connect the top and the bottom piece. The top that goes to the table saw, the bottom that goes to the shroud. So I'm just cutting all four of these pieces. And it'll go together something like this. There's still some cutting to be made, but I wanted to see how tall it would be. Still gotta cut angles on the top and bottom, cut angles on the sides, so it'll all fit together. Right here I'm cutting the angles. I believe I made like a 15-degree angle cut on the top and the bottom that connects the piece that goes to the table saw and the piece that goes to the dust collection fitting. Now with the top piece going to the table saws a bit larger than the bottom piece, I've got to cut angles that will kind of angle down from the larger piece to the smaller piece, of course. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just taking the inside of the cutout of the middle, marking it, and that's where I'll start my cuts. Then I'll take a square, connect the two lines, and cut it on my bandsaw. Just going to take a couple of brads, pin it together, and set this top and bottom on. So the top and bottom are connected to these two sides. I'm measuring the distance on the, actually that would be the front and back. I'll be cutting the sides now, just taking a measurement to see how wide I needed them, making my angle cut on the top and the bottom now. And just like the other two, front and back, cutting the angles for the larger frame to fit to the smaller frame. So now I'm just fitting that side in. Fits pretty snug. There was a little bit of gap here and there, but that will be taken care of a little bit later. So I've already got the front, the back, and the two sides on. Now I'm just marking the fitting to drill some holes. I'm going to countersink it a little bit so that I can screw that down to the chute that I'm building. So there's the holes with the countersinks, and I'll just screw that to what would be the bottom of the chute to hook up dust collection. Now I didn't have wood screws that were short enough without going all the way through the particle board. So what I did was I cut the wood screws down with a pair of dikes or snips or wire cutters, whatever you want to call them. Then I just pre-drilled some holes and then screwed it in like that. You'll notice on the corner right here, I've got some chip away on the particle board. I'll be taking care of that a little bit later as well, getting that filled in and cleaned up. After I screwed all the screws into the bottom, I went around the inside with clear caulking. This is caulking that goes on white, dries clear. So I'm just kind of smearing that on the inside to seal everything up. Not doing a very good job right now. It came out kind of fast on the one bead, and it was the whole thing was flush, so it was kind of hard to get it to lay in there. So I kind of just put a huge bead and then kind of smeared it in, and using some of the access on other areas. But the corners came out pretty well because they're corners. There was a place to set a bead in there, so the upright corners came out kind of nice. Okay, so now I'm drilling the 4 holes on the top that will connect to my table saw. What I was doing there is I was drilling one side about halfway in and then I turned it over to drill out the rest of the hole. That way I won't have any chip out on this particle board because it chips out real easy. I'm going to do a test fit on my table saw, see how it fits up before I continue with everything else. Now there is a front and a back to it that are different. The holes line up. If I have it switched around, the holes won't line up, so it has to be placed in there correctly. That's what I was checking there. Like I said, if I have it turned the opposite way, the holes don't line up. I was hoping the original bolts that I had for the table saw would be just long enough to clamp everything down, but it wasn't. So for the fit up, just to see how things worked, I used some all thread and a couple of bolts just to hold it in place while I fit everything up, which you'll see here in a moment. Alright, so I'd already put the all thread and tightened it down a bit. This is the mess that my table saw was making. Quite a bit of sawdust that I had to keep sweeping up. And right here there's a gap on the two sides, not the front and the back, but the two sides of the table saw, that I thought maybe a little bit too much air was coming in through there, and I wanted to get it closed up a little bit. But here I'll do a couple cuts with everything in place to kind of see if it's leaking anywhere. I knew that the gaps in the chute would leak by. I wanted to see how much dust would come out of the sides where the gaps are between the table saw and the chute. Okay, so I took the top off, took the table saw off to see what it looked like inside. It wasn't too bad. So took everything out. Right now I'm going to take care of those gaps and seal this box in a little bit. And all I'm doing is I'm going to take some Bondo and go around the edges, sand it down, smooth everything down. Okay, so I Bondoed all the gaps, sanded everything down smooth. Now I've got it painted, and I'm taking some foam weather strip and putting it on the sides where the gap was on the table saw, and I'll put it on the bottom and the top of the chute just to kind of seal up that side a little bit less airflow through there. I don't want to completely block all airflow. I don't want to completely seal it because you do need some airflow in order for the dust collector to work right. So I'm just gonna seal it up enough to where I think I've got some good airflow, yet things aren't kind of shooting out sawdust. Right here I'm making the holes for the top a little bit larger. The bolts I had before were smaller. I went out and got bolts. They were a little bit larger. They'd fit the table saw and they'd fit through the stand, but not the chute. So that's why I had to go and make the holes a little bit larger. After drilling all the holes, I'm just gonna put the table saw on it, button everything down, tighten everything up, and give her a couple of runs. Soon I want to sweep everything up around there and give it a good run, see how well it works. But I'm sure it's going to be better than nothing. We'll see how well it works in time, I guess. But right now I'm just going to tighten everything up. So here was my little project that I did this week. I had 4 days off, so I spent a couple days on this, a couple days on my yard. But maybe this will give somebody an idea of what to do about dust collection for their table saw if they're wanting to do something about it. I'm hoping this will just be temporary. Like I've said in some other videos, I hope to be building a table saw cabinet. Don't know how soon that'll be with finances and everything else, but yeah, hopefully you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.